Who Did I Marry? Part 3. Okay, so at this point, we are married. Now, it's important to understand kind of this timeline as well. We were living with a family that I was nannying for, and we were going to school full-time, we were working full-time, and we'd been married for 3 weeks when we had gone camping, and I opened up his camera roll and found extremely explicit pornography on his phone. And he told me that he had WhatsApp and someone had sent him a spam message, but there's a setting on that app where pictures will automatically download to your camera roll, and that must be what it was. And I was kind of like, okay. But it didn't really sit right with me. We had talked about pornography, and again, I know pornography isn't a big deal to some people, but within our religious community, within our upbringing, within our marriage, and the bounds we'd set for our marriage, that was an absolute no. And that proceeded, or kind of pushed me to have a conversation a few weeks later to be like, hey, look, we've talked about this before, but do you have a porn problem? And he said no. And I said, okay, do you have a porn problem? He said no. And I said, okay, I'm gonna ask you one more time, do you have a porn problem? And he said no. And I said, okay, well, I hope you know that if you do, or if that's ever an issue or has been an issue, you can come to me and talk to me about it. And at that point, he had admitted that he had in the past had a pornography problem, but it wasn't an issue. And I remember being like, why wouldn't you tell me? I've asked you about this, you lied. I'm not even mad about how in the past you had a porn problem. I'm talking about, the fact that you are, lying about that, and that you've lied to me, our whole relationship, about that. So that was instance number 1. And that kind of led me to being like, what is happening? And even, the day we got married, I remember just thinking, okay, he knows what he's doing. I don't. We both saved ourselves for marriage. We both had never been exposed really to sex, pornography, anything. We'd never done anything. We'd never crossed any boundaries. We'd saved ourselves for marriage, like I said. And I remember thinking, how is it that he knows what he's doing and is so comfortable? And I'm so what is going on? This was all very new to me. So all those pieces kind of I'm like, okay, all right. But I believe him. He's my husband, right? It was 9 months into us being married. We'd kind of moved on. We were living in an apartment at this point. One day I came home and I opened the bathroom door, and he was engaging in some level of sexual activity with his phone out. I don't know if he was Snapchatting someone, on the phone with someone. I don't know. Because my reaction is I opened the door and I looked to see what was happening, and I closed the door and I walked away. And when I brought it up to him later, his response was, what are you talking about? That never happened. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I was like, I literally saw you. And he was like, no. What are you talking about? You're making that up. I don't know what you're talking about. You're always constantly looking for a problem. We've talked about this. Why are you looking for an issue? Why are you trying to create an issue? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I must be looking for an issue. So that was kind of I guess, red flag number 2. And that was 9 months into us being married. And then kind of moving forward from this point, the other piece I couldn't quite put together is he just could never seem to follow through on things. I'd ask him to do something and he would forget, or he couldn't keep a job. He'd been let go from every job that he had, and he could never hit quota. He worked in sales. He never was making the money he said he was making, and he would tell me one thing and then it wouldn't really add up. And I was like, okay. We were both full-time students, going to school full-time. I was going to school full-time. I work as a wedding videographer, and I started shooting weddings at this point. It went really well. I was fortunate to be pretty successful off the bat, and I was lucky enough to be able to provide for us financially. And I remember thinking, he's in school, he's working on figuring out a career. We're so young, it's so cool that I get to provide financially for us. And I ended up being able to buy us a house in 2020. The end of 2020, we bought our first house, and we moved up to where we grew up, so we lived close to both of our parents. And it was kind of the same thing though, he just never would follow through. Jobs just weren't working, but I was able to work and provide for us financially.